There are a huge number of great shows that never quite get the recognition they deserve, but today I want to talk about one that holds a very special place in my heart, and that's Garth Marenghi's Darkplace. Now I'm willing to bet that many of you are thinking to yourself, what the hell is Garth Marenghi's Darkplace? And what the hell am I seeing on my screen right now? Well, before we get into what I think was truly exceptional about this show, let me briefly explain what the show is and how it originated. Garth Marenghi's Darkplace, often called Darkplace for short, is a British horror/drama parody television show that ran for one series, 6 episodes, and aired in 2004 for the British broadcaster Channel 4. The show was created by Matthew Holness and Richard Ayoade, and is a show that parodies 80s low-budget television shows by deliberately implementing poor acting, poor special effects, misogynistic male heroes, ridiculously over-the-top story arcs, and most importantly of all, a commentary track with the fictional show creators that attempts to explain the importance of the show and how it was created. It's actually a little complicated now that I think about it, so let me try and explain the premise here. So the premise is that the viewer is watching the show Garth Marenghi's Darkplace, which is being released in 2004 but was created in the 1980s. The show was created by fictional renowned horror author Garth Marenghi, who states that the show was deemed too radical to be aired in the 80s and is just now seeing light of day in 2004. The show was also created with the help of Garth Marenghi's publisher Dean Lerner, who provides commentary in between scenes of the show similarly to how Garth Marenghi himself does it. So in simple terms, the show is created by fictional characters who play fictional characters and comment in between scenes on the awesomeness of those fictional characters and the social importance of the excellent entertainment they have created. If you're still with me, let me explain further. The show itself takes place at a hospital in Romford, London called, you guessed it, Darkplace, and follows 4 employees who work at the hospital, 3 doctors and a hospital administrator who all work together to not only keep the hospital running, but also fighting off mysterious forms of evil that often find their way to hospital grounds. The crew fights a mysterious Scottish mist, a psychokinetic evildoer, a deranged scientist who's hellbent on reverting mankind back to primitive monkeys, and other paranormal figures that just get more and more ridiculous as the episodes continue. In between the craziness of the episodes, the fictional creators of the show, primarily Garth Marenghi and Dean Lerner, discuss how the episode was made and how bold and socially relevant the content itself is. This leads to some hilarious context added to some scenes that are already pretty hilarious to begin with because of how ridiculous they are, but more on that later. At this point in the video, you're probably asking yourself, Will, why are you making a video about this show? Well, the short answer to that question is that I love it, and I think it's one of the funniest shows I've ever seen. But the second reason is that it's so underrepresented and underappreciated, and I'm hoping this video will bring the show to people's attention. As I mentioned, Darkplace only ran for 6 episodes, one series or one season as we call it in the US, and was placed in a late night time slot with very little marketing that eventually resulted in, not surprisingly, poor ratings. This led to the cancellation of the show after just one series, and that was that. According to a BBC article written back in 2005, Film 4 ordered a full-length movie script for Darkplace, but nothing ever came of it. Since then, the show has built up a modest online following after appearing on American programs like the Sci-Fi Channel and Adult Swim, but has gone relatively unrecognized by the masses. Now, it's not super uncommon for comedy shows to be canceled. There's any number you could point to as proof of that, but albeit a very different show, Darkplace sort of reminds me of how Arrested Development was canceled. It might not have had quite the critical acclaim that Arrested Development did, but it didn't really matter because it was seemingly set up to fail in its designated time slot, especially with how little it was marketed. It's not surprising that most people have never heard of Darkplace. I hadn't either until my brother introduced me to the show sometime back in 2012, because you won't find very much info about it, or many people even discussing it. And I think that's truly a shame, because if you enjoy satirical humor similar to Airplane and Naked Gun, then I have a hard time believing you wouldn't love Darkplace. What Darkplace does is exactly what a movie like Airplane does. It parodies and satirizes content in a way that's deliberately ridiculous and over the top. It pokes fun at how silly certain genres can be when you stop and think about them. I'd actually say that Darkplace is more deliberately bad than Airplane is, but it's just as ridiculous. Let me just give you an example of the plot from one of the episodes. In the very first episode, Rick Douglas, MD, and the Darkplace crew attempt to close a portal that's allowing the gates of hell to spill into Darkplace. This eventually leads to some hilarious shenanigans along the way as the crew attempts to close the portal and restore Darkplace to some sense of normalcy. Another episode has Rick Douglas attempt to father a dangerous eye child, so you get my point. But the ridiculous plot lines are only a small part of what makes Garth Marenghi's Darkplace so great. I'd say the biggest reason is how silly the technical aspects feel. The acting is extremely wooden, the editing is choppy and messy, the shots are super awkwardly framed, and the music is so cheesy that it hurts. But this all lends itself to a tone that's harmlessly and irresistibly fun. It's just so easy to laugh at, and so easy to immerse yourself in, because it's a brand of humor that's designed as commentary on the genre it parodies, sure, but more importantly, it's designed to just make you laugh. That's the focus. In addition to the aspects I mentioned earlier, I do have to admit that I haven't watched a ton of low-budget horror TV shows, but I have watched older movies in the horror genre and otherwise that implemented similar technical strategies to a far less comedic effect. I'm specifically referring to the dialogue, the cinematography, and of course the audio editing. I should have mentioned the audio editing earlier actually, because it's such a huge part of this show. There's some hilarious use of audio dubbing that are just so incredibly noticeable and deliberate that it's almost impossible to not laugh at. And I think if we all went back and watched some of our favorite older movies and TV shows, we'd notice similar techniques being used that we just sort of accepted. Darkplace pokes fun and mocks such techniques that help kill immersion, and it does so in a way that just feels fun. I do want to give credit to the actors though. The show primarily follows Dr. Rick Douglas, Dr. Lucien Sanchez, Thornton Reed, and Dr. Liz Asher, who are played by Matthew Holness, Matt Berry, Richard Ayoade, and Alice Lowe respectively. These four play their roles with such style that it becomes near impossible to not love them and all their quirks and insecurities. They're basically cardboard cutout characters that you'd see in a similar style show or movie, especially in the 80s, and they just become so awesome because of how lively and energetic they are. It's weird actually, because although this show makes me laugh over and over again, and trust me, I've watched all 6 episodes a lot, I always feel this emptiness in my stomach when I finish the 6th and final episode. It actually makes me feel sad that I'll never see these characters again, and just upset what could have become a great long-running show was cut short despite how good it was. I honestly believe that Darkplace could have and still could be a wildly successful show if it was introduced to the masses. This would be a perfect show for a platform like Netflix, because I think you'd have a hard time convincing a typical TV network to take a chance on a show like this. It's just different. Maybe that was its ultimate downfall. It was just too unique. Sadly, Matthew Holness, one of the co-creators, tweeted back in 2013 that the characters in the show would never return. But hey, we can dream. Regardless, if you haven't already, I highly recommend you check out Garth Marenghi's Darkplace. All 6 episodes can be found on YouTube, and I'll leave the link to each of them in the description below. If you enjoy parody-style shows and movies, you're gonna love Garth Marenghi's Darkplace. It's ridiculous, lovable, unforgettably silly, and brilliantly awful. For those reasons, I believe you should give Garth Marenghi's Darkplace a shot. The best show you've never heard of. Thanks for watching. If you have any thoughts, comments, questions, or concerns, voice them in the comments section below. And make sure to share this video with your family and friends so more people can hear about this awesome show. Either way, that's all for now. This is WillFoxification signing off.